and welcome to the latest episode of the Making Lean Fly podcast. So I'm your host, Holt, and today we're talking about the power of standardised work. And as a reminder, this goes out as a normal podcast in audio only, but also you can see our videocast on YouTube. So today I've got some great guests to talk about the power of standardised work. I have Anthony Howarth, who is our global lean leader. I have Wang, who's one of our best and favourite lean experts, and Adam Nicklin, who's our enterprise excellence leader. And I'll ask those people to introduce themselves in a moment. But first of all, just to explain the abstract to this podcast episode, standardised work is a misunderstood subject. It can evoke feelings of work being made robotic, of stifling creativity, or being too time-consuming to create and maintain. So in this episode, I'm speaking to three experts who can talk about how quite the opposite is true, that standardised work reduces the stress and the conscious repetitiveness of work. It provides the freedom and time to be more creative. It takes far less time than the constant firefighting and heroics that non-standardised processes require. We also talk about the importance of a return to standard as the first step to problem solving, and of how standardisation of work requires ownership by the people who do the work. We finally discuss two important elements of standardised work, that of its place in office and non-manufacturing processes, and the significance of Kaizen to standardised work. So there's a lot in this episode today, but as I say, I've got some great guests here. So first of all, we have Anthony. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thanks, Philip. Good to be here again.
Great to have you. Everybody who listens to the podcast regularly will know Anthony pretty well by now, but a real global leader in how to apply lean thinking, lean leadership across an organisation. Adam Nicklin, who's on his second podcast, actually second one recording in a week.
Yeah. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have Adam. And Adam has recently taken over our enterprise excellence leadership. So looking at how we can make enterprise excellence, something that's really, as the name suggests, across the whole enterprise from start to finish. And then finally, I'm going to ask Catherine to give us a bit of an extended introduction to herself. Catherine's our lean expert based over in China, in Shanghai, and she looks after two of our key sites over there in Langfang and Xinjiang. And Catherine, maybe give a brief introduction to yourself, please.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here. I joined Nicklin since June 2019. And the time flies very quickly. Now it's almost 3.5 years. I didn't realize it so quickly. And before that, I worked around 20 years, mainly in automotive industry to do lean. First worked in the site as a site lean department leader, and then later to take the regional role to deploy that mainly in China, in Korea, India, Thailand, those type of countries. And before that, I had 10 years of teaching experience at school, mainly teach the middle ages, and later to teach a short period in university for the adult. So my whole career is on education, but for different audiences, that's for sure. My background was language or English. At the beginning, it's my job to use the language as my job. But finally, I use the language as a tool that enable me to be successful in industrial world. And so I got MBA degree and successfully with also the scholarship. Thanks for the working experience with Lean that really expand my eye view of the world and how to make the people to be excellent, not just at school, but also in the industrial world.
That's excellent, Catherine. And I still remember our interview, which I expected to last about 40 minutes, and it lasted about 1 hour and 20 minutes because I just couldn't stop talking to you about all the things you've done, and I love the way you think about education and the way that you see your role as just teaching and helping people to grow every day, and that's absolutely fantastic. So it's great to have you on the team, and you were one of our first team members, and one of the ones who's led the way in how we do our lean operating model in Geek and Aerospace. So fantastic to have you on the show. So let's get into it, right? So I'm going to ask you, Anthony, first of all, what is standardised work?
Standardised work for me represents, excuse me, the best method that we know of today to be able to produce what we need to produce in the safest way, the best way that gives us the best quality and achieves customer demand, from a speed perspective. So that's kind of like what it is. The intention is that the standardized work is developed by the team that are going to be using it. These are the people that are experts on the process, and we drive the engagement through them, develop the standard work with them based on their experiences, their history. So basically, we're getting from them all of their experience to document the best method that we have today that guarantees the safety, the quality, and the delivery, the speed.
Great. So basically, you're saying, there can always be a better way, but we're documenting how we currently know to do it in the current best way.
Absolutely. There'll always be better ways. We just haven't found them yet. And that's where the creativity that Philip was alluding to in the introduction comes from. Finding the creative ways to solve problems that we haven't solved yet. To find ways that eliminate risks from a safety and a quality perspective.
Excellent. It's a nice way of thinking about it. I like that. And Adam, if you think about that, the current best way of doing things. So what would somebody do if they don't agree with a standardised work?
Well, firstly, I would expect that they try to follow it. And get a level of knowledge of understanding what their concerns might be. And then, like we promote within our lean operating model deployment is we raise a Kaizen, what's the concern, what's causing that, and what's the countermeasure. And I think a lot of the time we are guilty of consciously or unconsciously thinking that we know the best way without actually trying the standard way. And often when we do try the standard way, it's actually a lot better than we think it would be. But yeah, I think it's one of those that do it, try it, and then if there is a genuine concern, try and problem solve it.
Okay, that's interesting. So you're already bringing in some of the things I want to talk about in more detail a bit later about you run into a standard, and if you're not quite sure that it's the best way of doing things, you raise a concern, then you do some problem solving. So. And like I say, we'll come to this a bit later, but it's not just about having a good idea of how to do something better.
No, I mean, one thing people are not short of is good ideas. And I'm often guilty of thinking a good idea is the best way. And the reality is that until you actually start to analyse, is it a genuine problem or is it more about you than anything else? So I think, to look inwards and reflect upon that. And is it a collective issue? Is it an individual issue? I think, we have to go that way.
Excellent. So I'd like to ask you, Catherine, because you're somebody who's, done this a lot in real life, who's put standardised work or helped sites to put standardised work in place. Why do they need it? What are the benefits to a company of having standardised work?
Well, without a standard work, you cannot imagine the site could produce good parts. Because it's a human's nature, and every person has their habit. They would like to do what they want, the way they like. So, in different shifts, people are doing differently. So, how can you ensure all the ways can be safe? How can you ensure that the people could produce good parts? How can you ensure that they can make the part within the pace that's determined by the customer volume with the time available? So that's for sure. If we want a process to be repeated, means no matter this shift or that shift or this person or that person who does the job, that should be the same, should be repeatable. And also the way of doing it yes, is the most safe way. So you, as a managers, you can feel, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I feel really feel happy that the people can do all the people can do the same job the same way. And since we do standardized work, we build a quality, we build a safety into the process that makes the process to be reliable and capable. So that's all the manufacturing site pursue. That's all what we want. Yes. In the end, with this, as you ask me about the benefits, yeah. Besides what I mentioned is that, yeah, with that people can work safely, as I mentioned. Yeah, with also, and we do the standardized work, we analyze the details. So for sure, ergonomic is a part of the consideration. Yeah, and the quality, as I mentioned before. So and uh, uh, cash in terms of working in progress is determined during the analysis. So that's standardized, right? And the number of people with a calculation, with a take time, and the total work content, we know how many people should be there. So we can control the cost as managers. Yeah, so in terms of all the KPIs, PSQ, DCC, yes, that's have all the benefits from the standardized work.
That's excellent, Catherine. And as usual, I mean, just such a comprehensive answer, because you just know this so well. And you mentioned, and for people who are listening who aren't familiar with our headline KPIs, you mentioned PSQ DCC. So that's our people metrics. So that's around engagement of people. It's safety. So how we're making sure it's a safe, both physically and emotionally safe environment. Quality, of course, is absolutely critical. Delivery performance, cash, generally inventory and working capital, and then finally cost. And if you listen to the way Catherine answered that, cost always comes last, because that's a natural outcome of doing everything else right first. And I love the way you talked, Catherine, about that reliability and quality, because you've worked in two industries where that's critical to our customers, right? Automotive, you want your car to be safe and reliable, and similarly in an aircraft, you don't want to be in an aeroplane that starts to break down. So it's absolutely critical. So we talk about people being first. Anthony, why is this good? So we talked about why this is good for the organisation. Why is this good for people?
Well, first of all, it's good for engagement, because they get the opportunity to design the ways that they want to work in the future, based on everything that they've learned about the process up to that point. It provides the baseline for that creativity that I mentioned. So when somebody does come with a better idea of doing it, maybe some test or experiment to prove that it is, and then get the idea implemented. But it sets the expectation. People know what's expected of them. It helps them to visualize normal from abnormal. So when something is off standard, it's very easy for them to be able to identify that as a off standard situation and then pull the hand on. So when material arrives and it's in the wrong condition, the wrong quantity in the box, or the box is presented in the wrong way, or the wrong material arrives, having something that makes that standardized, whether that's a visual standard or a written standard, enables them to be able to identify normal from abnormal, pull the hand on and request some support. So for me, it enables the creativity and the generation of it. It enables them to spot normal from abnormal, and it creates the baseline for further improvement.
Excellent. And again, I kind of love the way we're talking about standardised work, because I think often it's just thought of as SOPs or work instructions, and it's just this piece of paper, or it might be on a laptop or an iPad, and it's almost a forgotten element. And we seem to be talking about it in a way that it's live, it's living, it's part of the toolkit of the person doing the work. I mean, Adam, how would you?
Yeah, on that? I mean, I think it's an issue that I saw more coming into the aerospace industry. As you said, there's no hard shoulder at 40,000 feet, and I think we need to separate, the governed method of putting together our products versus balancing the tasks to meet our takt time. I think that's often where we get paralysed. Ultimately, I think me and Anthony and I have been in discussions. We're not actually physically trying to affect the manual of how to do it, but what we're saying is that we have a challenge here to meet our customer demand. We have to balance our line differently. We have to therefore break down those tasks smartly to actually enable us to be successful. And I think that's something that often paralyses us, and it's a hurdle that we need to overcome. Where we have had success is where that's been realised, and it's often set people free in their jobs. And another good example, I guess, is our team and GKN Aerospace's contribution to the ventilator project. There's a clear demand to set up a new line because of the need in the UK to work with other partners to build ventilators, and all of the situation was in place to build a line, and standardised work delivered that.
Yeah, and you're talking though, you're referring to the ventilator challenge during the COVID crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where GKN Aerospace was one of the partners, along with Rolls-Royce, McLaren, and many others, to create a new way of building ventilators.
Absolutely, and if we can do it in that kind of situation, I think we can do it anywhere.
Yeah, but what I love, you've really brought something up, and I'm going to ask you about this, Catherine, because I think it's a really important one, is you brought up the difference between the standard work, the design requirements, the way that the engineers have designed the product to be put together, which obviously is something that we can't just fiddle with, because there's regulations, there's requirements, obviously the quality and integrity of the product and the aircraft that it goes into relies upon that being built per the design specifications. But then there is the standardised work about how you operate around all that, the system, the production system that's going to enable you to make that work or make that happen effectively. So, Catherine, how do you see this? Do you ever see this as a challenge between people getting confused between the requirements of how to build the product and then the standardised work about the how around that?
Yes. At the beginning, when we started the standardized work, this kind of confused always come. Yeah, and that's because people don't understand. Once we start the standardized work program, we give the people the training. Yeah, we facilitate their thoughts, and it becomes easier for people to understand, and then they would like to master it. Yeah, for sure. At the very beginning, the engineers come up with a standard from the requirements of the techniques. Yeah, but when they design that, they don't see how it is produced, by who, the working environment, how the parts are stationed at the line side. Yeah, so they don't see it. However, when we really produce that, yeah, the different, even the same product that can be produced in different lines or different sizes. The environment, the configuration of the layout is totally different. And the way of handling the part is different. Yes. For the technical part, yes, that's okay. That has been written in working instructions. But as how to take the part from the pallets and from the boxes to the machine, it's not stated anywhere. And also how to split the workload between each, considering the takt time, which is not considered during the previous stage when engineers designed that. Yeah, but when we do that in a line, we need to consider the change of customer volume. That means the takt time. With a different takt time, different number of people are needed, so the work content of each operator is quite different. And how each operators cooperate together to make a good flow of the part, and even as how to smooth the variances between each operator means the standard working in progress. These are not in working instructions. And in reality, when the operator are really try to follow the working instruction, they have some concerns, they have some questions as how they should work together. Yeah, and how the parts should be oriented. This is not mentioned in the WI. because different suppliers may send the packages in different way if we didn't require them in the standard way. So this may cause safety issues or quality issues. So when you facilitate the workshop, the operators and engineers realize that yes, it is very necessary that we need to do a 7-step standard work with the operations. And then people could embrace it because you build the standardized work with the team. Everybody participate, and for sure the result is satisfied for everybody.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Catherine, and it just makes me think a little bit, about a metaphor, because the World Cup, the football or soccer World Cup's on at the moment, and every one of the teams is playing to the same engineering standards. But the way that they play the game is quite different. I mean, if you're England, you normally lose, and if you're another team, you might go further in the competition. And obviously, the difference between England and France's approach to the game was quite stark. And England went out and France went through. So playing with the same engineering standards in inverted commas, but getting different results through the how they actually play the game. So yeah, great description, Catherine. And it brings me on to something that I think you might be. I'm going to give you a 2-part question here, Anthony, because I think these are things that you'll be able to answer quite well. So first, maybe I was thinking when Catherine was on about the way that the parts are presented, and the impact on quality. There's something that we don't talk about that often, but it's called knack points. KNACK. And it's kind of an English word, but it's used, I think, even in Japanese companies, they talk about knack points. Anthony, could you perhaps explain what that is?
Yeah, so this is something that an operator would pick up with experience. They would find a knack point, they would find a tip, a trick, or something that effectively makes the job easier. It might be the way that they twist and turn a component, the way that they introduce a component to another component, by tilting it at a slightly different angle, because it enables the engagement of the two parts easier. These are the things that come with experience after you've built the product or you've assembled the product many, many times. And these kind of tips, tricks, we want to introduce back into the standard work, so that other people can take advantage of the learnings of other operators that have the greater experience. So, we often talk about, safety key points, quality key points, and knack points when we're designing our standard work.
Great. Thanks for that, Anthony. And I think that's something that we often don't focus enough on, because that's where the really experienced operators can really bring some insight that you could just never do by observing and documenting it without their input. I guess what it brings me on to is that second point. Maybe the way Catherine described it, when we talk about things like knack points, we're maybe immediately thinking of operator manual type of assembly activity. So does standardised work is it even a big deal when you've got automated lines, if you're in machine shops, for example? Does standardised work matter?
Well, it absolutely does, because whilst the machine is doing what the machine is doing, the operator should have standardised work that runs in parallel with the automatic time of the machine, which might be presentation of material, it might be to prepare the material to go into the automated system. And again, the way that is done all needs to be done in accordance with what I consider this best method to be, that considers safety key points, quality key points, and knack points. So I wouldn't expect an operator to be standing by the side of an automatic machine doing nothing. That wouldn't be a good use of the operator's time.
Okay, but is there a risk then? We talk about what's in it for the people doing the work. Is there a risk that this takes us back to kind of the 1960s time and motion? It's all about getting people to work all the time and sweat the people.
No, I'm not saying that, but what standardised work is for me is that it's the best method of organising our resources to produce the demand to the required quality specifications and keeping our operators safe. So it's whatever the team determines as being the best method. And I know from the Japanese culture that it's actually disrespectful for a person to be waiting for the machine. The idea is that the machine should be waiting for the person to complete the task. So in Japan, they would never design the standard work whereby the operator had to wait for the machine to finish its cycle.
Okay. And there's a term for that, isn't there? That mix of people and a machine. It's automation, isn't it?
Automation and Jidoka, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great. It's great. So I guess what we're at is the point where we normally say, let's just take a little bit of a break and do a fun fact to find out a bit more about people. And Anthony, we already know, don't win a plane piloted by him. But if you need a tractor, then he's your guy, or a HGV driver. So we know quite a bit about you, Anthony. So I'm not gonna pick on you again. But Adam, maybe you want to share with us a fun fact.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's I'm a big fan of Wolverhampton Wanderers. I'm missing it, even though we're bottom of the league at the moment. But looking forward to a new manager starting next week against Gillingham in the League Cup. But secondary to that, whether it's a fun fact, but it's something I'm proud of. I recently presented at the Sustainable Industry Conference, talking about a key hosting element on right-sized inventory enabled by value stream design. And as an outcome of that, I've been invited to present at the 2023 Journey to Excellence Conference as well. So for those of you who are involved with the work of True North Excellence, I look forward to seeing you there in June next year.
Excellent. Oh, that's really, really great, Adam. And good to see you sharing the knowledge. I believe our approach on inventory entitlement was very well received.
Yeah, extremely well received, and provoked a lot of discussion as well, which I guess is the purpose of the conferences.
Absolutely, that learning. Back to Catherine's earlier point about teaching and helping to teach people. So, Catherine, let's find out a bit more about you. What's a fun fact you could share with us about that maybe we don't know about?
Yeah, probably I can talk about a lot of examples like cooking. Yeah, cooking. Different people in China, different people make dishes with different flavor, and people say, "Hey, this is a mom's dish. This is a mom's work. This is a dad's work," because each just have their own standardized work. And may not written there, right? The people just always cook the same way, yeah. So that makes the different flavor. And one day, somebody say, "Hey, I want to change. Hey, how you do that?" In reality, is the Kaizen, to see what's the tips you made that make a difference between your dish and my dish. Yeah. So. One see the tips, or that could be the improvement of the standard work, right? So that makes it very interesting. And for me, at the beginning, I didn't cook well because I didn't have a standard work. And later, I saw my dad cook. When he cook, he told me how to do, and usually that's the standard. Yes, following that, I cook almost the same as him. So now later, I feel proud to be the same as him. Yeah.
So you took Dad's secret recipe, and now it's Catherine's secret recipe.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's really, really nice. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate you sharing that with us. So when Anthony and I visit China next year, we've got expectations on your cooking, Catherine.
Yeah. We will find the chance. Yeah. We will enjoy.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so maybe Anthony, back to you. I think I'm just interested in what do we mean by a return to standard?
So this is basically when we have been operating to standard and we've got some deterioration in the output of the process. So something's gone wrong in the process. So really a return to standard is understanding what the root cause of that and correcting it so that we get back to the standard condition and the standard outputs that we expect from the process.
Okay, so I guess, how would that relate to somebody who's got a problem and they start to problem solve? you know, is it best to first return to standard to make sure that you're actually running to the standardised work?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first point in the problem solving is to really try and establish what kind of problem are we dealing with. You know, are we dealing with a problem which is whereby we have gone off standard? And if we identify that is the case, then yeah, that first part of problem solving would be to try and get back to the standard situation. So a return to standard. And quite often, a lot of the problems that we find in our organisation, through the root cause analysis, we identify that we actually worked off standard. That's why it's quite frustrating when we do this to ourselves. Yeah. We deviate from the standard, and then we get a different result.
And some people even, I think, visualise that, don't they? They talk about SDCA before you PDCA. So set the standard, do the work to standard, check the outcome, and then act accordingly.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting one. And I guess, Adam, you know, your role now as an enterprise excellence leader is to really ensure that, you know, across GK and aerospace, we realise the benefits of lean outside of simply manufacturing processes, and we already have a few areas of the business that are doing that and reaping those benefits. But you're going to obviously try and ensure that this is a more coordinated approach. So what are the benefits of standardised work outside of manufacturing processes?
Well, I think the first thing is that they're there present, and a lot of the time we don't recognise them. So I think that's the first thing, is that, you know, if I could share a couple of examples, how an aircraft is started, we don't have an ignition. You know, the pilot and the co-pilot, they have a set of tasks that they have to do in a standardised way to ensure that the aircraft starts safely and efficiently. And we all rely upon that. You know, we don't just press a button and take off. Then I was also thinking as well about the police service. You know, there is a standardised way to make an arrest. You know, there are certain words that a police officer has to use to make sure that the arrest is lawful. And again, you know, if that standardised approach isn't followed, you know, an arrest could be unlawful, or in our terms could be bad quality. Mm. And then if you go back a bit further as well, you know, a good example is actually, believe it or not, is the original McDonald's Speedy system. So Morris and Richard McDonald setting up their Speedy system, where a person could go to a counter and order a hamburger and pay for it, and immediately they've got their food. And they did that by setting up, I think, around 12 people to do specific tasks. And I have no shares in this movie, but for that, there's a great film called The Founder. I think you can see it on most subscription services, that talks about how Ray Kroc basically industrialized what he recognized as a genius concept. So that's worth a look as well. And again, if you talk about say more traditional processes within manufacturing, like month-end accounting, there are certain tasks that need to be done in a certain way to make sure that the accounts are done appropriately. Mm. And these are the areas that, you know, we need to focus on, because the game is the same for all of us. We want better quality in a reduced period of time. And to do that, firstly, we need to understand why we need to change, and we have to go through a process to deliver that. So a few various examples. I guess we're going to get multiple industries on the podcast there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks for that. And you actually observe that with McDonald's, for example. You know, you can go to different countries with maybe different cultures, and you see that the way that they apply the standardised work varies. You know,
certainly does.
And I'm not going to label countries. So you can go to some McDonald's in some countries, and the people, you know, have got a certain way they're supposed to be working, but they're still walking into each other and banging into each other and making a bit of a patch of it. And then you go to other countries and it's working like clockwork, and you can see how the standardised work is running. So we've got another podcast episode on this, but this is, I guess, comes down to then the other side of standardised work, which is job instruction, about how you actually train people to follow the standardised.
Yeah, and just if I may, a couple of things as well, that the world is suffering from recruitment issues at the moment. And again, when we've done problem solving, a lot of it is to do with, we're actually not set up as a team or as an organisation to when somebody hands in a resignation, to be offered within 30 days. You know, that's the goal. And we can only do that by working in a standardised way. And especially when the situation now is really volatile, it's more important than ever.
Yeah, I guess a lot of office processes, it's almost like we're reinventing the wheel every time we follow the process. It's almost like it's the first time we've done it, instead of just having a tried and tested methodology for making something happen.
Yeah, and I think, with our expertise, and this is why enterprise excellence will be so important to GKN Aerospace and to other organisations, is there is a massive benefit, because ultimately, 15,000 people in our organisation, all of us, our job is to ensure that the product gets to our customer safely, on time, in the right quality. We've got to get our mindset around that. Our job is not just to do our job. Bigger picture is we're part of a process. So I'm excited for the potential that will bring to us.
Excellent. And Catherine, what are your experiences? Because obviously, particularly in the Langfang site, I've done a lot of standardised work following our methodology, the 7 steps of standardised work on the shop floor in the manufacturing processes. Have you expanded this? Has this gone into the office environment?
I'd like to say mainly in the logistic parts, doing more than the production. Yeah, they have done the internal logistic with the part to be dispatched to the production lines, and when should start, when should finish, and how each cycle to be, like the tech time. Yeah, we say based on tech time calculation, how many how frequent the part should be dispatched to the line. Yes, and also between the production lines, and how parts should be delivered to the next process for finished goods as well. So that's mostly related to production. For some office, we haven't defined the standard as what the document look like, but people start to do that as in different formats, as to show people how to do the work with considering of quality. I'd like to see this could be the area for us to look more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're starting to see some experimentation in the office environment, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, Catherine. And I guess, as we're getting towards the end, I don't want to end this podcast episode without talking about Kaizen. We talk about standardised work, we talk about Kaizen. I really am a great advocate of ensuring that people understand the nexus between the two, the connection between the two. So, Anthony, can you do Kaizen without standardised work?
Not really, because you don't have a stable, repeatable, reliable process, do you? The likelihood is that you're going to have people performing the operation and doing it different ways, perhaps on different shifts, with different people. So you don't really have that stable platform on which to be able to create the Kaizen. I guess there is an anomaly to that, and that is that I still consider the setting of the standard to be a Kaizen. You're getting the team together, you're defining what that best method is, what's the best way of organising our resources to achieve the customer demand in the safest way, and respecting the quality requirements. So that activity I still consider to be a Kaizen. If the end result is that we're putting a new standard in place that didn't exist before, but generally speaking, yes, there can be no Kaizen without the standard.
So I guess just to and ask the question a different way to you, Adam. If you do a Kaizen, can it actually be a Kaizen if it doesn't result in either a new standard, in Anthony's example, or a change to the existing standard?
Well, you've got to question what you're actually changing and the benefit of it. And I think that's something that we try very hard in our team to challenge ourselves in a respectful way. Is that no, if ultimately we've made a change and it hasn't impacted anything, then you've got your problem solving wrong. And I think there are certain methods that can help you determine that. For example, Anthony talked about, a concern in itself is not having a standard, so therefore it's a Kaizen. But processes that are key to us, like daily management and problem solving. So, how do we recognise that we've got an anomaly, but how's it impacting us on a day-to-day basis as well? So, I think to answer the question, I don't believe so. I think we can have maybe a nice to haves, but we've got to be smart with our time. In terms of reporting the news and making the news in daily management. For me, the making the news is that we've had a genuine concern. This is the cause of it. We can recognise that with data and fact, and we've solved the problem, and this is the confirmed benefit. And then we haven't even talked about making that step change of moving from daily small Kaizen to Kaizen events to deliver a real step change. So I think it's so important that these things have to coexist.
Excellent. And you mentioned problem solving. Again, I think one of the things I observe is that sometimes Kaizen are looked at, and the way that people come up with Kaizen is to think, what is the good idea I could implement? What is a change? And I think sometimes when we've done this ourselves in GK Aerospace, is set targets on the number of Kaizen per person per month to try and inspire people to do Kaizen. But what it can sometimes result in is people just searching for good ideas. So, hey, at the moment, the standard is my book should be there. So wouldn't it be good if I put my book there instead? When really what we want people to do is to look for, what are the problems I'm facing every day? And what's one problem that's really bugging me? And then what's the cause of that? And then what should be the countermeasure, the improvement? And then that should result in an update in the standard, that's your Kaizen. How do you see this, Catherine? How do you observe this?
Yeah, I think this is a very very interesting point. Yeah, I think the team leader play a good role in facilitating the team members to come up with Kaizen. Yeah, no matter whatever problems the team member may encounter, this could be the chance to do the Kaizen. So the team leader could ask the operators, yeah, what do you think about it? What difficulties do you have? What do you think we can improve? What ideas you have in your mind? Then they could have some discussions, and then this triggers the Kaizen, and this also increases the morale of the operators. Yeah, when they are asked, they feel interested. They feel, yes, my leader's interested. My leader want to help me, and in the same time, he can present his ideas, and that makes him feel proud that he could have good ideas. So the process of generating Kaizen is very interesting, and it really depends on a good facilitator. To educate the team leaders, we can do some examples, real examples. When the team leaders see, hey, yes, this way works. Let me do that like that. In my line, I have a lot of issues. I just keep all this with me. If I ask my team members about it, the team member will feel happy to do that, and it will come more Kaizen.
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. So I love some of the key points there. So it's that leader as a teacher, a leader who wants to help to teach the team, but then a leader who's got the humility to say, hey, I'm not expected to solve all of these problems myself. I'm going to ask my team to help me to solve these problems. And then that's real teamwork and real leadership. So that's fantastic, Catherine. Thank you. I could talk about standardised work for a long time, but we are unfortunately coming towards the end of the show. So let's go to the last question that I always ask all guests the same question at the end, which is, what would be your advice to anyone who wants to make a breakthrough in this area? So, Catherine, if you were talking to somebody who is in a site and hasn't really seen, tried to get the benefits of standardised work, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would like to discuss with him as which lines they suffer. Yeah, they have the most problem of quality, or they have productivity issues, or they have a capacity.
Oh, unfortunately, and this is very unfortunate, it seems that we've lost Catherine right
It was going so well.
It was going so well. So, it'll be all right on the night we continue recording. So hopefully Catherine's going to re-establish her connection, because that was, beginning to be a great answer, starting with the problem. So, Adam, maybe the same question to you about advice.
Yeah, I mean, we coined the phrase in our team, let's be the doctor, not the shopkeeper. A shopkeeper will give you what you want, and as lean experts, we should be asking, diagnostic questions. So let's make sure we are solving a genuine problem. And then take time to go through the process, teach our teams to fish so they can fish for themselves, etc. Go step by step. Don't abandon people. I think you've got to stick with people, stick with the process, because it'll likely not work perfectly the first or second time, but know that actually it is the right way, and just be resilient and relentless, I think. And one thing that Catherine does, even though she's not here, she's completely relentless in that message to sharing that with the team.
Absolutely. I mean, what Catherine does is she follows her standardised work, which is the way that you deploy lean in the best way we know how to do it now. Yeah. And as a result of that, putting her own personality, her own experience, injecting her own knack points into that, she helps the team in Langfang and Xinjiang to gain the results and solve the problems that bug them. Brilliant. Thanks, Adam. Same question to you, Anthony.
Not much to add, really. So for me, the goal is not to deploy tools. The goal is to solve problems. So, like as Catherine was saying, if I was wanting to engage with somebody around the deployment of standardised work, I would be looking to identify the problem.
Yeah.
Have you got a problem where you can't meet the output? Have we got a process or a line whereby, we're having frequent accidents and things that are incidents? Have we got a line that's not giving us the quality that we need? And using the standardised work, or prescribing the standardised work, using the answer that Adam gave about being the doctor rather than the shopkeeper, and following the 7 steps, following our own standard work on how to deploy this to solve the problem that the team leader or the group leader might have. So nothing really to add on top of what Catherine and Adam have already said.
Yeah, so it all begins with problems, and we need to ensure that we're solving those problems. And we're just about to close off, and Catherine has rejoined us. So great that you could rejoin us, Catherine. So I'm going to ask you. You started answering the question of what advice you would give, and it was great. We were really enjoying it. So if I could ask you the same question again, because I would love to hear your answer.
Yeah, sorry for that, for the line. Don't know why. But to start with the line which have opportunities, that's really, if we do a 7-step standard works that could help the site to have the benefits. Yeah. And then since we want to have the benefit, we need to invest. The only invest is the time and the resource to spend 5 days. The 5 days is not just for training. It's for really training plus workshop in the shop floor changes. Make some just do it Kaizen, make immediately changes. And to do that, there should be some preparation. One is the resources we need to have, including the facilitator, including the group leader, team leaders. The best is that we can get the operators involved, even though they need to focus on their job, but we let them know they are involved, they are part of the team. When there are some questions, the team could go to the line to ask the operator, let them feel they are part of the team, so that they would be very happy to tell you the problems, to surface the problem, and participate to give good ideas for Kaizen. And then this will be part of them. And they will for sure work together. And finally, the standard work at the end will be performed by themselves. And they would be very willing to make it happen. So that's a kind of a preparation we need for the resource and for the timing. And also for the facilitator need to go to the line to understand what are the issues, and so prepare some logistics that could allow the team to make it happen during the 5 days of workshop. Otherwise, if you don't prepare that during the 5 days, even though you want to just do it together, you don't have the material, you don't have the tools. So this should be prepared in advance. And during the 5 days Kaizen, we should get the leadership involved. This is also education for the site steering committee. Even though they could not participate the whole, at least every day you should come to participate in the debriefing to see what is going on, what theory, principles the team have been learning, whether they understand. And then when the team do some activities, what support they could provide. And then this also could be some motivating points for the team. When they see the leaders comes to observe them, to support them, they feel motivated and they will do greater changes in the shop floor to show their value, to show that the Kaizen they could do it. So and then we'll just follow after the Kaizen, follow the benefits. I'm sure if we invest with right people, with good preparation, with motivated teams, the team for sure will be successful.
Excellent. Thank you, Catherine. I mean, great advice there. And again, to summarize, start with problems to solve. What are the problems you need to solve in the site? Make sure it's Kaizen event focused, so it's about delivering results. It's not just training. You need to give some training, but deliver results. And to make that happen, be really well prepared up front. Make sure you've got total involvement, and make sure that the leadership are activist leaderships, not just advocates. And then finally, make sure you're getting the results. So again, pearls of wisdom there, Catherine, by somebody who goes and does this on a regular basis. So thank you very much. So I'm going to close off. This is one of our longest, if not the longest episode, but I think for very good reason, because it's such a in-depth and interesting subject. So I'd like to thank Catherine for making the time to join us and sharing your wisdom. Anthony, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And Adam, great to have you on, bringing in that kind of more enterprise-wide perspective on things. So I hope you've enjoyed this podcast episode, or videocast if you're brave enough to watch us as well. But remember, it's about changing how you lead, not who you are.